Раз, раз, два. Раз, два, раз.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will actually start even earlier than we've mentioned we would. It's a great honor to welcome at Ukraine Crisis Media Center Wendy Sherman, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. Thank you so much for making it to Ukraine Crisis Center.
Thank you. I have to look at my watch, remember where I am. Good afternoon. I was here a year ago, but today I visited Ukraine. Last year was something else. I've just walked through the Maidan and could hardly keep my tears. I had a statement, but I left it in the car. But the statement that matters is what the people of Ukraine have done and are doing for themselves. The country, the government of America, President Obama, Secretary Kerry, all of my colleagues support is a Ukraine that has been built by Ukrainians themselves to be an inclusive democracy that strives for a prosperous, peaceful future that gives its citizens every opportunity for the future they have chosen for themselves. My grandmother grew up in Pereaslo. And quite frankly, when I was a child and I grew up, I considered her Russian. And it was only after the fall of the Soviet Union that I understood that she was also Ukrainian. And what I feel walking through the streets and honoring the fallen is that everyone who walks through the streets anytime they come here are Ukrainian. It is really extraordinary what the government has done in a very short period of time, and the international community offers every form of support that we possibly can. What has occurred is extraordinary, and the United States and the international community fully support the independence, the territorial integrity, and the sovereignty of Ukraine, and anyone who tries to say it is otherwise does not understand the people and the aspirations of this country. We believe it is extraordinarily important what is occurring as Ukraine moves toward further constitutional reform, and importantly to the election on May the 25th, which must be free and fair and supported by everyone. I am honored to be here today. I am honored to have walked through the Maidan. When one watches on television from afar, one has no idea of the scope, the impact, the events that have occurred, the burned buildings, the memorials to the fallen, the 100, quite frankly, probably the thousands, who have taken it somehow for their country. The United States of America wants to do whatever we can that's appropriate to support what Ukrainians want for themselves. These are decisions and choices to be made by Ukraine, not by any outside power. And what our responsibility is as a democracy that holds these values firmly is to support Ukraine and the people of Ukraine in their efforts to choose their own future. I want to thank Ambassador Pyatt, who is with me. He and our embassy team every single day and night, quite frankly, and weekends, he has no idea what day it is, they all blend together, want to do everything they possibly can to support the people of Ukraine for their own choices and their own decisions. And I am very privileged to work with Ambassador Pyatt and with our embassy team and with my colleagues back in Washington and around the world, because quite frankly, I just came from Vienna. I'll head to Brussels after this. Everyone in the world understands what's happening here and wants to support the efforts that are taking place. I know Ukraine will succeed in reaching the objective of a free and open society with an economic future that will be hard to get. Very tough decisions have to be made, and there will be much sacrifice, but the promise of that future is great, and I believe that the Ukrainian people are going to deliver such a future to themselves. Let me stop there, and I'll be delighted to take your questions.
Radio Liberty, Bogdana Kostyuk, we met with you a year ago. What do you think now Ukraine, not de jure, but de facto, is under Russian aggression? The United States provided first sanctions. Does Washington is planning to continue sanctioning? Thank you.
Washington and President Obama, Secretary Kerry, are very clear that if Russia continues its aggression and does not de-escalate, that there will be additional sanctions and additional actions we will take. President Obama has invited all of the leaders of the G7 to a meeting on the margins of the Hague Nuclear Security Summit on Monday to discuss what further steps the G7 might take together. You know that the European Council is meeting today. The Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Union has taken action. The Japanese have taken action. The Canadians have taken action. And this is all done with an effort to internationalize this, to make sure that the United States continues to take appropriate steps and that other countries around the world do so as well. There's nowhere I go, and I travel quite a bit, that I do not talk about what that country, wherever I'm visiting, might do to support what Ukraine is trying to do for itself.
Undersecretary Sherman, the government in Moscow...
Can you tell me who you...
I'm sorry, Philip Ittner from Al Jazeera, America. The government in Moscow, of course, does not look upon this new government in quite the same light that you are expressing. Not as so much freedom fighters, but extremists. How do we reconcile with the Russian side of things, and can you get them to start talking to this government?
You know, it's very interesting. If I listened to the Russian rhetoric, I would have expected to walk through the streets of Kyiv and be attacked by dangerous elements. I was approached by school children with flowers. So I think that one of the realities is the reality that your television cameras can offer. There are not dangerous elements. I'm going to go to Dnipropetrovsk tomorrow and try to have the same experiment, to meet with people, to talk with civil society. I'm going to meet with the Jewish community and see whether, in fact, all of those dangerous elements that Russians are speaking of even exist. You know, every society has its issues. There's no question about it. But all I have seen since I have arrived here are people trying to go about living good lives. I hope we can get Russia to talk. Secretary Kerry has spent countless hours with Minister Lavrov, whom I know quite well myself, and has offered all manner of ability. And your acting president, your prime minister, have also shown remarkable remarkable discipline, have put out a hand to have diplomacy, negotiations, discussions to de-escalate the situation. It is incredibly admirable, the restraint that has been shown, because it's not easy at all. We understand the feelings that are inside, and justifiable, but they have shown a sense of stature and restraint and maturity that is in great contrast to the rhetoric, to the aggression of Russia. And even today, the international community has still said Russia should de-escalate, should enter into discussions, that people ought to be able to live together, that Russia needs to de-escalate and to move its forces back, that indeed Ukraine is one sovereign territory.
Информационное агентство «Укринформ», Интерфакс Украина, Игорь Соловей. Скажите, пожалуйста...
Укринформ Agency, Игорь Соловей.
Каково видение Соединенных Штатов
What is the
на
vision of the
дальнейшее
United
развитие
States
событий?
on the further development of
Считаете ли
events?
вы, что
Do you think,
Российская
what is the
Федерация
view of the
может
United States on the further development of the events? Do you think that the Russian Federation would limit itself to Crimea only, or do you think it would spread its actions on the mainland Ukraine? Thank you.
I think it is crucial that the international community and the United States continue to say quite clearly that there will be costs and further isolation of Russia if it continues to take aggressive steps that in any way undermine the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine. As I said earlier, we have passed a first round of sanctions. The executive order signed by the President of the United States can be, as we say in English, populated by additional sanctions as if Russia continues to take steps in the wrong direction. Russia has a choice. They need to understand there will be costs if they make the wrong choices, and the United States is quite clear about that. I know you have seen, heard from the President of the United States, you've heard from Secretary Kerry, you have heard from members of our Congress who have come and visited, that the United States will not only speak clearly, but we will act clearly about the choices that Russia makes.
Jim Hines, Associated Press. To what extent is the United States being specific with the Russian side when discussing further possible sanctions? Are you telling the Russians, just in terms of what you've said here, that there will be more sanctions coming, or are you telling them, okay, if you don't back down, we will do specific X, Y, and Z?
Well, the executive order speaks to categories of sanctions, from individuals to entities to military entities to business and trade sector. So I think that the Russians know quite clearly what the categories of sanctions can be, and the United States has used sanctions all over the world. I think people are well aware of the range of sanctions that we can put in place and the impact that they can have. But you know, the point of sanctions are not an end in themselves. Sanctions are meant to say to anyone on whom we impose them that you have choices you can make, and you ought to make the right ones, and we will continue to urge Russia to make the right ones.
Будь ласка, Олена Талаєва, фріланс. Ви приїжджали, ну не ви, приїжджали до нас на Майдан, в Європарламентарі і казали, а що такого страшного, ми їх питали, а що такого страшного треба зробити Януковичу, щоб нарешті були санкції. Поки Небесна Сотня не пішла на землю, не пішла, а ми не прибрали з барикад тіла жінок. По-русски?
What is the terrible thing that
К нам приезжали. Будь ласка, ми
So please.
Мы долго ждали санкций.
We have been waiting for sanctions for a very long time, and we were asking what terrible thing has to happen to make the sanctions happen. And now we have the heavenly hundreds. And is it like we have to figure it out ourselves? The sanctions would help. Next question: Crimea are natural resources. Do we have? Would they have to be sold, or would they have to be somehow presented?
Listening to you.
I do understand. I can't feel it in the same way that you do, but I do understand your passion to know how many people will have to die before the situation changes and aggression stops against the people of Ukraine. There are a number of things that we can do to help. Your foreign minister is in Vienna today at the OSCE trying to get the OSCE to come to a conclusion of sending monitors here to Ukraine to bear witness to what is going on and to help the world understand what is true and what is not true. And those international monitors, whether they come from the OSCE, whether they come from the EU, whether they come from the global community, however we can make it happen, are absolutely critical, particularly in the south and in the east, but throughout all of Ukraine, to let people know what's going on and to try to protect people in their own communities. So that is one piece that's important. It is critically important to try to make sure that we can have demobilization of the military in ways that there is dignity, there is safety, and that in fact the military can be brought together again to provide what protection it can for the people of Ukraine. It is critical, quite frankly, for Ukraine itself to work with the IMF and to get an IMF agreement so that in fact investment returns to Ukraine, so that you can have the economic future that you hope for. So there are things in the economic arena. There are things in the international arena to provide protection and safety and monitoring and to bear witness to what is going on. There is also the critical constitutional reform that needs to take place here. There is the very critical election on May 25th. A free and fair election here in Ukraine with, I hope and I expect, many hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of international monitors to ensure that it is free and fair, will create some sustainability for the people of Ukraine about the governing structures going forward. So there is an enormous amount of hard work to do, but I must say I met with some of the young student activists who helped to create what has occurred on the Maidan and what has occurred in this country. And I was a young student activist myself back in the 1960s in my own country. And there are student activists all over the world who help move their country forward. And the young people I met with today are among the finest I've ever met with. They are committed, they are hardworking, they are disciplined, they are focused, they will not give up. And although they hope agreements are made with the European Union or that the United States can be of support, what they said to me that was most heartfelt was, in the end, we know that none of these things are the answer. We are the answer. We have to make it happen for ourselves. You can support us to do it, but we have to make it happen for ourselves. That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary.
Олена Матюцька, 1+1 ТСН. Вчора Рада
Олена Матюцька, 1+1. Olena Matyutska, 1+1 TV
Вчора
channel.
Рада нацбезпеки і оборони
Yesterday,
України
the National
вирішила
Security and Defense
звернутися
Council
до
of Ukraine has
Організації
decided to
Об'єднаних
address the
Націй з
United
проханням
Nations
визнати Крим
to
демілітаризованою
recognize the
зоною,
Crimea
так
as the
звідти могли
demilitarized
вийти і
zone,
російські
so that
війська,
both the
і
Russian
спокійно
military
могли би
troops
вивести українці
could
своїх
withdraw from
військових.
there, and so that
Наскільки
Ukrainians
ця
could withdraw the
перспектива
Ukrainian troops from the
райдужна,
Crimea.
чи буде
Do you think this is
США
a promising
радбезі
option?
ООН
Will the
такі
US
рішення?
support
І чи
such
це дійсно
decision in
може
the UN
бути
Security
фактом?
Council, and do
Чи
you
це
think it
дійсно
can
станеться,
become a
якщо
fact?
ООН
Do you think
спробує
it
це
could
зробити?
really happen that the UN could try to make it happen?
I think that there are many people trying to make that happen. And I know that Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will be coming here. He is in Moscow or on his way. We certainly think that this is a concept that is promising. To have the UN engage in this way and to have the Security Council engaged in this way. There are details that have to get worked out and agreements that have to be reached. But we certainly think that this is an effort that is worth pursuing. And we hope it comes to fruition if we can make it work. Yes.
Last question to Max.
Max Sutton from BuzzFeed. The Russians said yesterday that they were considering changing their position on Iran, as quite obviously as a result of the tensions over Ukraine. I was wondering if you could speak a little more in detail about that. Have you had any blowback officially, or is just this full bluster on their part?
Well, what I can say to you is I came here this morning from Vienna. I lead the United States negotiating team for the talks with Iran. And just spent 2.5 days with Sergei Ryabkov, who made those comments. And during the negotiations, he was completely focused on the negotiation. There was no hint whatsoever that what was happening on the larger stage was impacting his conduct during the negotiations. Indeed, everyone was focused on the task at hand. I hope that indeed Russia will continue to maintain its focus where it matters. It is in Russia's interest that Iran not have a nuclear weapon. So I would expect that they would follow through on that interest. Just like I believe it is in Russia's interest for peace and harmony in the world to uphold the UN Charter, to hold up the Budapest Agreement, to uphold international norms and laws, not to take aggressive acts in someone else's sovereign territory.
Well, they did that in Ukraine, so what's to stop them from doing that on the Iran issue?
I hope they understand that it is not in their interest to do so, and we will see. It is critical that the United States and the world community continue to urge Russia to act in what it is true international interests, not in any given moment. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Colleagues, this will be all for today. We won't have a briefing at 4 o'clock. Look out for our announcement of the tomorrow's press briefings in your emails. In case you haven't registered with this press center, please do leave your address at the registration, and we'll send to you the information about tomorrow's schedule. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Слава